cannot overshadow the fact that Sama, for instance, putting in work in that bot lane.
And they give it up. So the Caitlyn is picked up on blue side here. Then you start to look at Lux combination with it. The Karma's already banned out, which is both something strong to play with and against the Caitlyn to try and retake control of that lane. So I'm very curious to see what the answer here from Team Liquid is, with that setup.
It's probably not Kai'Sa. It's just been their hover so far in the game.
Got to be range, yeah.
Okay, so Varus, we did see a little bit of in lock-in. Cloud9 had brought that out for Sven, and now we're getting to see it from Team Liquid. Sama bringing through the utility here.
Yeah, you can see not a very picked champion so far. The stat just there was picked 3% of the time. And then just another Zen game for Santorin.
Yeah, and so about the Varus pick here, was played a couple times in the LCK. The lethality poke Varus build is back. Even the on-hit build was buffed a little bit a few patches ago, so it's still an option. But I definitely think that Team Liquid will trend here towards poke and the longer range, considering the things that they have already picked in the past.
Ooh, the Poppy.
And there's our Lux.
Poppy and Lux locked in for Dignitas side.
Yeah, so it's got to be a jungle Poppy, but that is just a rather early Poppy angle. When I think about it, though, Jarvan already banned away, Trundle already banned away, Xin already taken. If they want an 80 jungle, not the worst option.
Yeah, and we saw Blabber utilize it so effectively. Poppy, really good inherent base stats, quite tanky early on, can interrupt the dash from Xin. So I'm questioning if we're going to get the more likely Predator Poppy build, or if he actually goes the tech that Blabber went with, the Phase Rush to charge in and reposition afterwards. Predator would give you better wallbang attempts, but more in-combat move speed there, and escapability with the Predator. Oftentimes when you have those entangled engagements, pretty strong. The Tahm Kench is back, baby!
Oh boy!
Back off the bench, back on the Rift. Ayla had a good game and some great moments in that game one, despite Team Liquid not getting the victory.
One of the biggest things to look at when you're approaching draft here now from the side of Team Liquid is with the Caitlyn Lux lane. This is going to be perma-pushing, harass bottom lane that wants to be up in your face all the time, pushing you to tower, threatening your binding plus trap combinations, and it's going to be very long range. You're going to need some sort of engage onto this backline and some sort of way to crack them early. So I like the picking up the Zins out early, but then looking towards mid laners as well. You want something that can get out of lane and get down there as well. As many possible threats as you possibly can, because Varus ultimate can set up for ganks extremely well. Tahm Kench can actually capitalize on those extremely well too, if you just go with the W and try and knock it onto one of those snared targets. Team Liquid will take out the Zoe and the Gwen though, knocking down on some of the solo lanes here.
Yeah, I'm going to be really curious to see how that bottom lane does play out, because it is important that you don't let the Caitlyn Lux snowball ahead of them. And well, yes, they only get the Varus ult at 6, right? And I think Tahm Kench trying to W in for an engage pre-6 is going to be tough. So there's going to be a lot of time that TL has to buy. But really, we'll see solo lane picks coming in soon to round up the comps. And
remember, this is because Tahm Kench just got those recent buffs on 12 too. So definitely the durability is there, but it's still the Devour was moved to the ultimate, so it's not like previously where you could pick Tahm Kench into it and just Devour much more frequently out of those binding trap combinations. It's going to have to be played around a little bit more carefully.
And some of that power that you're mentioning coming back into TK specifically for that support play to make him feel as good there as he has in other lanes. And with the Gwen being banned away by Team Liquid, Dignitas say, well, if you're not going to play that, we don't want you to play the Graves either. So the last round of bans in that regard. And then the mid lane matchup, having the Victor over for Team Liquid here. Standard pick for Bjergsen to be coming through, but a Ryze on the rise in this draft.
Yeah, so not going to have the range advantage in the mid lane matchup. With the Zoe and the Corki being banned away, he was going to have to flex a little bit. Syndra would have been tricky with the CC stacking with the Lux Syndra in the comp, so I don't hate it, but it is definitely a little atypical.
And I'm hoping that this is not the tanky Ryze that we have seen in LPL and LCK. It's gained a lot of popularity, the Thimble Winter style, and turning your tier that way, because looking at the comp overall, they would look like a lot of lack of damage if it was tank Ryze plus tank Gragas, and then you would rely so insanely heavily on your bottom lane, regardless of how good Neo and Biofrost have been. So I expect it to be the more traditional Rise than kind of the flavor of the month that really has taken over, has gained a lot of popularity in solo queue as well as the tank Rise.
And with that Aatrox pick, Team Liquid complete their draft to bring that power to the top side. We've got the lineups locked in. What do you feel of the win conditions that they're both bringing through?
I think it's going to be really interesting. The mid-game, like, eye contact range, having Victor and Varus is going to be really good. But if Blue can get strong enough to apply pressure in the side lanes in the mid-game, then the Caitlyn Lux will also be able to set up well. So I think a lot will hinge on whether or not the Caitlyn Lux can get plates down in the early game.
Yep, Caitlyn Lux teams always revolve around bottom lane. And again, we talk about roaming mid laners. Rise is that, so Realm Warps will also be incredibly important in him trying to get down there. And once again, surprise, surprise, Fake God on top, probably on an island, probably by yourself, buddy. We'll catch up with you later.
Unless the rest of his team wants to come over and say hello. They did do that a little bit against Whippo, so maybe he'll have some friends invited to the party over there. But I'm excited to see how this shakes out. Game number 3, both of the teams, even in their losses, it's not like they got blasted out. They can still have that hope of being able to turn it around if you do find yourself in a deficit.
Yeah, the amount of attention paid towards Bwipo in this draft was rather high. I'd say he's probably the most influential player so far in this series, nearly taking over the game as Graves in the first one and absolutely taking over the game as Gwen in this one. You saw all those champions banned, also a Jace ban, holding for his counter pick at the very end, but because there were so many bans, he does end up on an Aatrox, which we have not seen very much of thus far. And the early bush control is actually sniffed out by a bot lane ward by Santorin early on in the game.
Dropping it down to get those eyes on Dignitas, taken to the blue side for the first time within this series.
Yeah, it's incredibly important for Caitlyn Lux lanes, as we mentioned over and over. Push, get your tower plates. You need to get gold advantages with this type of lane. Caitlyn is focused on the early game and is built around pushing and offensively getting gold off tower plates, off pushing minions and getting CS lead here. So a lot of focus will be paid to this side of the map. Early ward for side brush control, so that can get started early is no surprise there. Plus, junglers will be pathing from topside down towards these lanes.
Dignitas very aware of that win condition, Team Liquid as well, and wanting to make sure they offset that. So Hans Sama and Ayla, the early sweeper too.
Such good prep, such good decision making here, playing around it. They're trying to even pull.
So if the wave crashes, they don't want to get hit by it. Are they just going to run in behind him and brawl?
Yes.
Okay.
They're going for
Love it.
Already throwing out
Already
the
in.
kills for Peacemaker. Some good old poke onto Sama. Throws it back. The hail of arrows hits really strong. Oh, flash! Neo tried to get it. Ends up falling on Sama, staying alive.
I love it by Team Liquid right there. We had the early interview with Ayla talking about how much he likes laning with Hans because Hans always wants to go for the kills. They did the math. This 2v2 will win a damage trade if we can get the angle, and they take it.
And again, the math checks out. This is melee, Tahm Kench, buff durability. So you just want to run at them. They get super far back. Only the ranged minions are on them. They don't have to worry about the melee ones. And Tahm Kench can just run the Caitlyn down. Just focus on him. Neo does flash forward, gets the headshot into the Q, which is a good attempt, but Hans still has flash to answer. And it's just such good usage here. Your Hail of Blades with your Varus all the time when you go with the lethality build. So it's a lot better trading early on than the fleet there, and being able to land it was so critical for them. Now, all summoners are down for this lane where you want to pressure it continually with jungle pressure, with mid lane pressure to try and get those ganks off, try and crack it.
And the last thing I'll say as well is Neo with the cleanse didn't have as much immediate combat power for level 1. So another thing that factors into that decision of TL to go for the 2v2.
So while both of the junglers were preparing to make an impact on that bottom lane earlier on in the game, Team Liquid's bot lane said, nope, we're just going to do it right off the bat. So win condition clearly identified. And here up top, Fake God just using some of the range of his abilities to poke down Whippo, keep him under the turret. Still even in CS thus far, so keeping his own within these trades. A little low though, slapping with the Q.
Yeah, fully stacked Conqueror though, so Aatrox wants the longer trade where he can use all of his Qs there. Bwipo got some of the healing, and his jungler is here, so use your extra summoner spell, Santorin.
Somewhat low on mana for Fake God. He did pop a pot to
God,
try and
go
fix
for kill.
that somewhat. Oh, went for the flash and the belly fall onto Bwipo, but it's not enough. That's a second kill for Team Liquid.
Back right at it here. It's going to be an attempt at the cut. Frost lands a snare.
Teleport comes in, and the pop onto Hansama. Blue getting the kill credit for that one. River and the rest of the bot lane are still in the vicinity, but that wave is going to get chunked down, so they take that victory.
And it's an even bigger victory than it looks at first glance because Blue roamed down. Bjergsen already used a teleport, and Blue will be able to reset on that mid wave after the fact. So really well executed play there, bottom lane by Dig.
And only 35 seconds to go before the Drake ends up popping up, so still some time to be afforded to get that set up too.
Definitely an exciting opening to this one because previous to that bot dive, it was back-to-back Team Liquid successful. I guess we can call the bottom one a gank if you're ganked by your own lane unexpectedly. Shouldn't have a completion here. Santorin is sitting around for, actually completes the recall. Big stacked wave there is going to crash for Bwipo, but both plays were Hansama and Bwipo.
Oh man.
Tries to lash on down. Ayla gets stocked up before he can escape, so that means River on the Poppy getting his name on the board.
Whatever advantage TL gained from that level 1 has been completely erased. Another wave is also going to stack up against Varus, and I don't even know if he'll be able to get that. But we might just be in for another Bwipo attempt with the way this game is going.
Yeah, I mean, you try and make it about bottom lane when you pick the Caitlyn Lux, and that's what they want. They want it to not be about Bwipo from the side of Daytime.
Yeah.
They're doing all they can, but as I was about to say, both of those early plays were so well predicted there by Team Liquid. They force the Dignitas player hand. They expect the flash play to try and go for the counter kill, and both times they flash out of it. Here comes River, though. He corrected bottom lane, and he wants the correct top.
Yep, he hit onto Bwipo, and the knock through from River. Poppy has arrived. Fake God stays alive, too, and gets the kill.
You know you're sweating, too, when you're trying to give the kill to your laner, and they start to get close to death. One more auto there. Fake God does have it in the end, though, with the empowered auto.
Ends up being worth. Dig now several successful plays in a row, and Santorin is just kind of caught playing catch up, right? They burn the TP to try and defend bottom lane, doesn't work. Bwipo dies while trying to probably get off a fairly greedy recall. Now Santorin is just left catching that wave, so Dig is running this early game.
I want to revisit River here because this guy, even when things go poorly early on in a game, even if a game plan is not going exactly how you wanted it to, he remains offensive and he looks to fight their way back into it. He creates plays. Bottom side, flashing in to catch Ayla just before the W goes off. Gets him against the wall with the Poppy stun, and then top side as well, corrects it for Fake God so that Bwipo can't get out of control. There's the combo.
And
but
the pressure
look at the roam.
continues. Onslaught the headshot to finish off onto Hansama. In the end, River and Blue are here if they needed to assist in that moment. Instead, Blast going over. Ayla is here alone under his turret. The wave has come through. The smash through from the Poppy. River a bit knocked up and making sure to keep the turret aggro on him as well to allow the rest of them to slice through, because in the end it's still a catfish, and the Q hit from Neo. Blue gets the kill.
Second successful roam pre-7 minutes by getting that mid wave completely shoved in and assisting that bottom lane. So the Rise pick, even though it won't have the outrange in the late game, is paying off huge here in the early game.
Yep, push with your Caitlyn Lux, gank the Caitlyn Lux lane, get as much as you possibly can out of it. That is another turret plate also worked off in the aftermath.
They want to put that Caitlyn death in the past. Forget about it, because they're making sure to inject as much gold into that bot lane as possible. And all the while, Santorin hovering over towards this top side to establish vision and take some of those camps as well, knowing that River was making that bot play.
Yeah, jungle's such a fun game to just watch, too, if you're not paying attention to some of these other factors. Big punishment here is Santorin, you're always trying to counter jungle after someone is spam ganking. It's just the age-old question, debate for junglers. What are you giving up when you're spam ganking? That was literally 3 ganks in a row from River. Santorin does counter jungle, and they're setting up the Rift Herald. Early move, no AD carries are here.
Oh, Biofrost executes his flash. A barrel thrown through
Smack him out of there.
God. You can hear the wind up to target Ayla and gets him out to the outskirts of the pit.
Ooh.
A blast going over.
That was
We're back. A little hippity hop there. Okay, so Santorin goes in, gets the slash around with his ultimate, challenge initiated, and he's chunked, and so is the Catfish. Many members of Dignitas cleaning it up right now and pushing everybody else back from Team Liquid. 2 have fallen, and the rest get out of there.
That was kind of a disaster for TL because it was a 5v4 not in their favor the whole time. Santorin tries to salvage it by stopping the Rift Herald, but they still suffer 2 casualties.
Yeah, Caitlyn was off a reset. Neo and Biofrost had just pushed the lane, so Caitlyn was closer to the Rift Herald, and while Hansama kind of debated coming up, look at the mini-map here. This is off of reset, Caitlyn's coming down, you can eject 1 member, so Dignitas, they get the time for Caitlyn to get there, they've got the numbers advantage, and keeping the Varus bottom lane pushing. Yes, Team Liquid are going to get some minions and turret plates down on bottom, as well as Santorin actually getting the last hit on the Rift Herald and picking that up, but it does cost you the extra kills.
I mean, it diverts total disaster, the fact that he was able to get the Rift Herald. And it's not like the bottom wave was in a state where they're giving away a huge number of plates. He gets 1 plate from that entire exchange. It is rare, to be honest, that the Caitlyn Lux will move, which probably caught them off guard. But once they saw the Caitlyn Lux there, I think TL had to call for a disengage. They just didn't.
And off of that, that means that Dignitas can continue to take a foothold into this game. 1.4K gold lead established for themselves at the 10-minute mark. You saw what Fake God is able to do in those fights using the zoning.
Whoa!
River goes over the wall. Bjergsen, wow, that's a lot of blast of damage that he suffers in that moment.
Just clean. Look at the control they already had in that river setting up for the Dragons. So even though Bjergsen was in a defensive position, it's still not far enough back for safety. Beautiful play by Dig right there.
And specifically River. I mean, I love watching this guy play. You think he's going for wards. He's going for a play. Flashes over, catches Bjergsen. Bjergsen had flash, but because River comes out of the fog of war, flashes over right into the wall, it is chained into the root from blue. They kill him without it.
That range that we've talked about before with this bot lane continues to issue the poke directly under the turret, and River finally getting that Drake that they've been setting up for some time.
And you need to stay ahead of it. Junglers looking towards topside here. It is a Rift Herald in the hands of Santorin, so he can pop it, get the tower aggro on that, go with Whippo. It's a Rise and Poppy quickly coming though. They've got to get out of there.
Realm Warp has arrived. He has the cavalry, so it's the 3v2. Rift Herald does crash through. Blue knocked up. Santorin issuing the crescent guard. Whippo can't stay alive even after popping his own ultimate, so he gives his life.
I mean, it gets the turret, but you can also see maybe even a bit of desperation here. Whippo has been so effective in the last 2 games, trying to solo carry the team with the Graves or Gwen. Aatrox is just not the same scaling, and also
Hull Breaker.
He's got a Hull Breaker. So I mean, yes, he is absolutely trying to do the solo carry, but Kobe, I don't know if that's something I've seen much of.
Man, we have gone through such a roller coaster with Whippo this series. Let's take a look at bottom lane first, though, because Biofrost has the movement speed to get in position.
And a good chain of corruption onto Biofrost, but he can throw out that final spark. Great dodges from Hansama, so he doesn't get any of that chunk down.
And you're watching what is a lot more rare nowadays, but the mobility boots purchase from Biofrost on the Lux. He's looking for the extra move speed to get in position to find those snares. Attack bottom side, just like the rest of the team. Jungle mid, constantly going to the Caitlyn Lux lane. They're gonna push in once again. You actually don't finish up with the Gromp counter jungle because Santorin had the full reset. And then Bjergsen still has teleport as well.
Multiple wards thrown down by Team Liquid bot there because they've been so wary of the blast cone entries that have been their downfall in the past.
With Hullbreaker, big thing to highlight here. Whippo has opted completely different from last game where he's Gwen, where he can bring that power to the rest of the team. The Hullbreaker is so much of the efficiency when you're isolated. So this Aatrox, he wants to keep split pushing. Right now he's actually running through, clearing out some wards in the jungle for himself so he can create that pocket of vision so he can actually utilize the Hullbreaker, get that side lane pressure for Team Liquid going.
And for those of you who don't play top lane and don't like reading item descriptions, Hullbreaker is more effective when there are no allied champions nearby. So it actually is an attempt of one of those 1v9 items. He'll gain 20 armor and magic resist and 20% increased damage to towers while also buffing his nearby large minions. But for now, Fake God is trading completely fine against it.
He's worked into that Bramble Vest as well for some additional durability, cut through some of that healing. It does feel like Bwipo has taken the theme of this entire series to heart, that I want to continue that 1v9 dominance whenever it works in our favor. But FakeGod is known to be somebody who can strongly offset that.
And there are levels to this choice because he knows that Dignitas want to use so many resources towards their Caitlyn Lux. So he's trying to get the maximum out of a team that will have to give up a lot to be able to send more stuff towards him. If Rise is ganking him, is ganking topside to deal with his split-pushing Hullbreaker, then they're not ganking for the other side of the map, and they're not getting things, you know, pushing off of this bottom lane, which they invested so heavily into. So it's an interesting choice. I like the choice. You know, Hullbreaker is still very, very controversial, but I'm definitely with it this time around.
Yeah, but let's check in on the game state now that the turret plates have fallen and we have one turret down on each side. I'd say the early game has gone well for Dignitas. They have a lot of farm on blue to be a side lane threat, and they did execute the Caitlyn quite well, as you can see, about a 1,700 gold advantage, Caitlyn over Varus. But the name of the game for Team Liquid is just going to be buying time. The dragon stacking is not incredibly fast so far from Dignitas. They'll only be able to get a soul around like 27, 28 minutes. So if they can get to a point where they have a lot of items on Victor and Varus, they will have a good poke advantage with the setup. So I think that's the moment that TL should be waiting for.
Meanwhile, from the Dig point of view, you know, moving over very quickly to Herald number 2, every one of these neutral objectives accelerates the game so well for them. They want to get Rift Herald number 2 taken off of the map before that dragon spawns. Immediately pick this up. This will accelerate their tower pushing. You have Caitlyn Lux. You have to ride this power curve. So they take bottom lane, switch top to get the Rift Herald, then you can transition back down, continue your dragon stacking, because that is how you continue to play off this super strong bottom lane. Caitlyn always wants to be at these objectives early so you can set up your traps, you know, through those small corridors, force them to come to you, and just leverage that advantage continuously.
And does get to set up with this dragon spawning right exactly now. Dignitas are the first ones to arrive within the river and within that enemy jungle. And by taking that Rift Herald, also denying what afforded Team Liquid the first turret that they took down when they got the first Shelly.
Yep, very good job by them. Step number 1, put the vision in. Step number 2, get into that river, place your traps. Poppy starting up the dragon for themselves. The split pushing is not going to get answered. We see the recall being channeled from Bjergsen, and number 2 will go the way of Dig. FakeGod is going for it.
Teleport coming directly onto the turret. Ultimate activated by Bwipo, so he has some of the speed to get out, but the Realm Warp directly behind him alongside a fellow teleport coming through too. He's still alive and gets the good hit onto Biofrost after he arrives, and in the end, FakeGod is the one blasted Chaos Storm for the zoning on the rest of the Dignitas members.
The legend of Bwipo continues! My goodness, he fights his way out. The team gets there in time.
Oh man, definitely I think a little unexpected for him to get that many people thrown at him, since Dignitas was actually taking the Drake after having a big setup, but he's just buying time, gets a kill, gets out, keeps him in the game.
Seeing how he responds to just the low bars, knowing so well how his champion operates and being able to execute when going against multiple enemies.
Yep, can't go backwards. The Realm Warp already behind him, so just fight forwards until extra teammates arrive, and it works out once again. I will still say, though, Dig are playing their strategy quite well, playing their comp quite well, still sticking to that game plan. The key of that choice that you point out is that they did first get the dragon with very little resources. Yeah. You know, just River in there taking it allows this mobility boots Lux, once again, from Biofrost to rotate over very quickly, make use of the extra map mobility with that plus Realm Warp, and they keep up the pressure, keep pushing ahead. This power curve, utilize Rift Herald and mid, and Whip on top, trying to flank.
Whoop, dropping down the Herald and then zoning on the rest. Santorin gets knocked up, and Bwipo once again activated. The pushback from Santorin goes to target Blue right now, who has that Swifty ability to exit on his own right, but Bwipo's still in pursuit. Hits him with a Q. Ayla's here, goes under and pops right back up. Chaos Storm directly onto Biofrost. That's too much damage for him to take. Dignitas fall, lose 3 in the skirmish.
What a massive turn for Team Liquid right there. They get the bounty out of Neo, shut down River, and I think they're going to get the mid lane turret out of this. So even though they got just assaulted in the early game by the Rise roam to build up that lead from Caitlyn, they just run right through Dig in that fight.
I gotta watch that replay and how Neo ended up in the hands of Whippo as well.
Yeah, we'll see.
Whippo, Santorin in the side brush, and Dignitas are all running away from mid right into Whippo. And so Whippo, yeah, he hits him with the chain right over there. Into the corner goes Neo, not able to get outside the box. So they walk right into the Team Liquid flank. Santorin and Whippo run them over, make them pay. No escape for Dignitas, no escape for this tower pushing duo. And they had so much going their way with the Rift Heralds and the Dragons continually stacking and pressing in, and now all this flood of money into the hands of TL.
Also, it's a little late, but pointing out that nice little TK move by Ayla, popping Bjergsen into the fight with the ultimate, nice little touch.
Aggressive use there, which means that Dignitas, while they got that mid turret, they lost their own, they lost the fight, and the gold has officially swung over into Team Liquid's side. As minor as it is, it at least means that they've stemmed some of those early advantages that Dignitas was executing for themselves, even in the turrets.
I like that. I like the point about Ayla too, just because the broader topic of the player choice for TL. The lineup, every single game has so many iterations that they can possibly choose from, and settling on this one for securely the entire series does, we can see where it came from, and it is paying off.
Coming into this series, Hans Sama and Ayla and Bradley, but Hans Sama had the most games, had 100% win rates for TL.
Yeah.
So it was still a fairly effective lineup for them. And I wouldn't be too surprised if they hold this lineup for the rest of the weekend with the detective work we did early on. Jan being on Twitch streaming, getting ratted out, having to shut down his stream.
I saw his Twitter. He quote tweeted and said that he was not in fact streaming today.
Well, it does, I think, leak the lineup a little bit. I think Ayla's going to be in for the whole day.
And I think a lot of people are happy to see that because of the hype that has been surrounding him for some time, whether it be because of his performance in the OPL or even during Academy last year, often getting talked about in the same way he and Poom and a lot of those supports on the rise were.
All right, and back to the overall state of the game. We are approaching the point where Team Liquid can crack this dragon stacking. How important was it to get into the river and at the objective first for Dig? We saw it illustrated very clearly in the previous play. And Team Liquid with the flank, huge punish. This time around, they can get into pushing mid-wave first, and Whippo once again finds a chain.
Chains in Fate God, and the rest of the team follows up. Explosive cast to create that distance so Fate God can attempt to escape, but he's already burning down and even eating out to make sure he can escape the rest of that Chaos Storm. Nobody dies, but quite a moment for Team Liquid to be able to turn and now take the Drake.
Yep, they get into Dragon first. They can burn it down too. Teleport being used, though.
Okay.
Dignitas do look like they want to contest this. Ace in the hole. Doesn't really do much to Ayla, who is willing to chunk that. 2 hit out by the Poppy with the hammer coming on down. So Team Liquid, they make sure to back off for just some time being, but River's already on the outskirts with a Fate God. Santorin locked up here. A good stun up onto the Battle Mage of Blue, and no more Rise here to follow through.
That was a very interesting fight to watch. Because Dig tried about every which way to get a flank angle on the TL, and even though the items haven't really accrued onto the Victor Varus yet as backline damage, it didn't even look close. So it's definitely feeling right now like Dignitas need to be in almost a sense of desperation. After the ultimates were burned, you think maybe Fate God comes in with full health and they'd have something. They actually knocked 2 people out of the fight, and still, they can't really move through any space.
I think it was a good flash by Ayla, because what they're looking to do there is separate the team. When you go for that Poppy ultimate, knock those 2 away, if Fate God then had gotten the engage and knocked Tahm Kench solo into their team, then maybe they can get their pick and try and ride a very shallow numbers advantage and the split team to make something out of it. But good flash by Ayla avoids the possible engage, and then they just wait until their front line walks back from the Poppy ultimate, and a really good turnaround there. Then you saw the Tahm Kench devours, Bjergsen over the wall, spits him back over the wall, and is back in range to kill.
And there is a really big lack of damage right now from Dignitas. Caitlyn hasn't hit Infinity Edge yet, and it's the Thimblewinter build on Rise that Kobe, you didn't want to see.
Yeah, for this exact reason.
Probably because everyone is just a tank. So if they do manage to take 70% health off someone, Ayla can just gobble them up and take them out of there as well with the mini Tahm Kench rework that happened. So TL can be just extremely elusive, poke to create space, and are in such a power position in this game now.
Exactly. That's why I highlighted in Champ Select, when you're looking at the overall composition, I do think this is a good build, you know, for solo queue.
Yeah.
And if you have another damage threat on the team, but it is definitely less damage going with the Fimble Winter for your tier conversion for Rise. Super popular, you know, LPL, LCK playing it a ton there, and you do have a lot of control, but it puts so much emphasis on Neo and the Caitlyn, and it is a, you know, collector second Caitlyn who already got kind of chopped off as far as the snowball advantage that they were, you know, turning into being a really big DPS threat. So they are going to run into that problem of low DPS you talk about. Funnily enough, too, Bwipo just made 2 big team plays, even with the whole breaker build as far as the builds.
Yeah.
So now he can get a little more use, gets back out to the side lane to push it first, but he's just finding so much success in both areas.
The tooltip says he's done 733 bonus damage to towers with it. So
Wow.
that adds up a little bit.
Wow. But, you know, I mean, talking about the fact that Dignitas have to rely so much on Neo to output that damage later, and they were putting so much into that snowball and trying to give him to a position to do so, then yeah, you got Bwipo on the other side willing to make a threat. You got Ayla willing to target him and get him out of the fight, and just so much opportunity on Team Liquid to capitalize when given the chance to do so with this 2K gold lead that they have now established.
And I think the game is likely going to be pretty slow. That's the second ultimate Biofrost has had to burn just for vision on Baron, because you can see the river is just completely in control from Team Liquid. But at the same time, with the lethality Varus and Aatrox and a fairly defensive Victor build, TL doesn't kill Baron fast either. So at the moment, it's just about starting their dragon stacking pretty late. I think they're quite comfortable in their ability to just outscale this game. So I don't think Team Liquid's in any hurry, but they are in a good state.
Still a full minute on the docket before that next Drake comes up, but yes, not a very likely win condition that either team are looking to stack towards that overall victory.
And now we see our 3-item power spike from this Rise tank build. You know, you do have very valuable aura from the Frozen Heart from blue, so gonna reduce the attack speed effectively versus the Xin. You know, the Varus and the Aatrox, not as much concerned about it. Hinders combos a little bit tiny later, but you know, it is a poke Varus who keeps a lot of range and is a lot of power in the Q poke as well, and then Aatrox into the Qs. So not going to be the biggest of deterrents for this team, and we'll see if they can actually utilize any sort of extra mobility coming here, because Bwipo should be able to push in on bottom side, get them bottom lane control first, and allow them to retain this control of the vision around the dragon.
Dignitas spent some time hovering over towards this bot side to see if they can get a pick off or a play, but that was not the case, which means Team Liquid continue to capitalize upon laying down that vision around Baron, continue to allow Bwipo to push down bot and get into it time and time again with Fate God. But there is a Poppy on the opposite end. River throwing down the ultimate to make sure you get out too. The final spark to try and layer up, and Santorin now wanting to escape to the rest of the team. Bwipo has come through, World Ender activated, but Fate God is here as well and still has the explosive cast if necessary. But the root is onto blue, which means he pops next. Santorin finds his target onto the tanky Gragas. Flash forwards from Dignitas to try and issue a bit of an escape right now. Good slows onto Bjergsen so he can't follow up on the Gravity Storm, and in the end, it's a disengage.
That was crazy positioning in this fight, with the Poppy coming from the other side and ejecting those two members just as Hans jumps in Ayla's belly. They get the Devour off, so he's not left alone, which is critical because he just had to flash from blue. So the attempt from Dig was good, but the avoidance from Team Liquid was better. They get Dragon number 2. Bye-bye Dragon stacking.
Absolutely. And maybe hello Dragon stacking for Team Liquid now. It's about a 37-minute soul that they'd be tracking towards. And again, it just kind of illustrates the difficulty that Dignitas has trying to kill anyone with Team Liquid. They had Santorin 1v4 for like 6 seconds. They had Bwipo 1v4 for the same. And it's blue who dies. So there is a point where Caitlyn and Rise will get up to a point where they can do lethal damage. It's just a long ways away.
Yeah, I think they're going to need Biofrost help in that department too. Like, maybe if Biofrost starts getting some more kills and you can pump out some combo DPS with the Lux, you can always hope for fishing around for picks with Lux or Gragas, separating somebody later on. Team Liquid now, though, very confident in the 5-person move.
If Dignitas want to try and get to that point where their Caitlyn can do that damage and Ryze can do that damage, you do still have to find those ways to stick in it in the meantime, because you really need that time to pass. And yeah, maybe Biofrost, even in that last fight, seeing the final spark come out and it can't really lay on that damage when out of the range there. So see what they'll have to do to try and break into what Team Liquid has been controlling throughout the mid portion of this game. I mean, Baron, for instance, still has just been a warding target. No fighting happening around that regard.
This is definitely feeling like one of those games where the side lanes get pushed for a while, and then that dragon timer up in the top left corner gets to 45 seconds, and they start moving into the river, and then they just fight over that space over and over again. And for the way that plays out, it's generally Victor and Varus that are going to have the range advantage to try and create that space. But if Dignitas can either pick someone off in a side lane or somehow get behind Team Liquid, that's the way they'll have to play it, because Team Liquid is the team with the range advantage.
I'm going to offer you a door number 2 to Dragon focus, and that is Hullbreaker Aatrox, constant bottom lane pressure, allowing for full vision control around Baron from Team Liquid.
He's breaking the hull.
And he has completely destroyed the hull. If this, we have to track though, is it actually going to be enough? Because again, it is poke Varus, not on hit Varus, so it's pretty good Baron damage with him plus Victor, but is nothing spectacular. And there are pretty good vision checking tools with Lux, you know, as well as multiple Scryer orbs coming through with both Blue and Neo picking them up.
Yeah, and as much as we've talked about the fact that Dignitas has a hard time killing TL, TL has a hard time killing Dignitas. Like, Victor's the only one who's doing large amounts of sustained damage.
I think it's easier for TL to kill Dig, though.
A little bit. Hullbreaker update. 1,300 bonus damage to turrets.
That last turret did melt.
He didn't even bother looking at Fake God. Just said, I'm directly on this turret. That's my only objective, and was able to acquire it.
Hullbreaker enthusiasts unite.
All right, starting up on the Baron. Whippo joining with the rest of the squad. Again, the vision checking tools are there. You go with the Lux for the first brush, then slowly trying to work their way in. See if Hans can land a good Varus ultimate here, though, would really...
Very timid approach from Dignitas.
It's a little brute forced by TL.
There's a teleport available, but nothing really for Fake God to drop in. Now he is actually directly at the fight. Team Liquid don't want to take that anymore. Double root, final spark, follow up with a low cooldown ultimate like that. You're willing to just issue some of that poke.
Caitlyn does have Infinited the Edge as well, so if Neo is able to free hit for a little while, he will be able to do significant damage to the front line of TL.
So off of that, now Dig finally get an opportunity to just clear out some of that vision across that riverside, and TL bring their attention elsewhere.
Ah, there you go. You've been waiting for some big damage.
It's under 1 minute.
You've been waiting for some big damage too. Guess what? Death Cap comes in for Bjergsen, 45 seconds ahead of Dragon. That is perfect timing for Team Liquid. They've got so much more burst power now. Death Cap completed right before a very big Dragon fight. They also just used the teleport from Whippo to join with the rest of the team after pushing the wave on bottom.
And Whippo, he's going for it. Flashes forward, World Ender, Biofrost flashes away. The knock-through from River to pin him against the wall, and the final spark to follow up. But meanwhile, on the opposite side, the Chaos Storm did drop below one member. A nice gobble up there. And Fake God zoning him off. So it's Whippo down for Team Liquid, and Dignitas still standing here, but getting poked out.
Definitely Whippo feeling his power a little bit too much right there, but the zone control still there from TL. They still have their damage dealers and are holding the river as this dragon spawns.
Yeah, I wonder if the miscommunication on the follow-up there, you know, looking for a Tom Kent bringing somebody, but it is now Dignitas, 5v4, teleport coming in.
And Fake God already getting marked down to 50% HP. River is on the opposite side. Root onto Santorin gives a slight delay, but Bjergsen continuing to trunk down here, and even some of those hits from Hansama dealing some nice damage. The stun up and the follow-up from Biofrost. Blue gets popped in the process, and even right now, Santorin is the next target of River, but even this tanky boy can only do so much without the follow-up from the rest of the team. Santorin coming alive once again off of the resurrection, but Dignitas losing 2 here.
Obstacle course there for Santorin coming out. There's so many traps and a barrel on the ground as well for him to walk out of that pit. What a dragon fight, Team Liquid! Even with Bwipo down, the death cap completed. 3-item power spike for Victor is enough damage for them to do it. Santorin went in, he even stole it, and now transitioning to this vision on Baron. They kill off the ward. They started off regardless.
River's still dead for another 20 seconds, and the damage is not that high for Dignitas. TL could just flip this or look to get an engage onto Neo.
And Fate got teleported to the mid lane to get here as quick as possible. Bjergsen wants to keep them away with a poke. Explosive cast thrown on through. You lock up Biofrost. You send him into the heat incinerator. And now Team Liquid keep their eyes on the Baron and want to make the second objective play secured.
They just continue the play. So even though there was this close Soul Point Dragon fight where they get the smite steal, since they picked up kills on the back end, they do not miss a beat. Bwipo, who died early, means he's alive first, and they use that advantage to start up the Baron and eventually secure it.
Strategy.
I died early just so I could be alive sooner.
Always a plan with Bwipo, I believe. I'm sure there's a lot of believers in the chat too. And because they've got that Baron buff here, the Red Bull Baron buff at that, they can take down that tier 2 in the top lane and feel pretty good about it. Even have Bwipo over mid to keep ushering up that wave.
Yeah, get that hole breaker. Put that sucker back to you.
Girl.
Get away from the teammates. The tower is down.
Oh,
Baron
Bjergsen.
engage.
Ayla, now the subject of the rest to keep Hansama in his belly. Santorin goes back in, pressing guard to push him away. Fate got ease out of this to leave River to have to flash after getting knocked up, and now Neo a little too close to the rest of the damage. They push it back onto Ayla, and now Bwipo coming from the opposite side. Neo gets pop, pop, pop down. Blue throwing up the Realm for an attempted escape right now, and Bwipo with the World Ender, he doesn't care. He said, thank God you want to be at your Nexus turrets. Come right at me, bro. I got you. A nice slash from Bwipo here, coming strong in the top lane all game.
What a display by Bwipo so far in this series. 330 CS, hull breaking down the whole Dignitas team. Bjergsen popped at the start of that fight. It didn't matter. We're 2-1 TL.
Let's go! Bwipo story all around. I think it's just the theme of this series. But it means that Team Liquid do pull ahead against Dignitas, a lot favoring them. But hey, you got to give it to the rest of the team for how they were able to follow through on the advantages he was creating.
Yeah, I was looking at the split push, and all of a sudden, Victor is dead with flash up still, and you think, uh-oh, this is the chance. This is the Dignitas comeback play, and yet still comes right through the mid lane that he broke open. They still collect the team fight, even with the most, what you would think would be disastrous starts where your, super fed Victor with 3-item power spike goes down at the beginning. Well played to Team Bwipo.
I was going to say, like, the early games are going well for Dig. The one game they did win is because they had kind of the 5v5 team fighting comp. And it's not that they haven't been executing some of the early game strategies. They just haven't been able to close. So I think they got to pivot back. I hate to say it to Corky Victor, Zoe, like stuff like that if they want to come back in the series.
I think one thing is for sure, though. This Dignitas team that everyone underestimated and was last pick in lock-in tournament is the real deal. They actually have so many looks, and I'm really glad once River got here, they actually got to show them. Definitely excited to see where this team goes.
It is great to see, even in the losses, them attempting to make those plays and show that they have that strength to be a contender within this series and beyond. And now that Team Liquid do have the lead, we are going to prepare ourselves for match